All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to MGS 401, the Pillars of the National Green Ribbon Award. We are going to work this as a webinar tonight. So if you have any questions, if you're watching the recording or if you're live joining us, feel free to put questions in the chat. If you're watching the recording, feel free to email me any questions. My email will be at the final screen at the end of the presentation. So welcome to everybody, and let's go ahead and get started. Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to the National Green Ribbon Award, which has three different pillars, and we'll go through each one of those. Reduced environmental impact and costs, improved health and wellness, and effective environmental and sustainability education. We'll end our night with two case studies of specific schools and how they won the National Green Ribbon Award, and then we will take questions from the audience. So let's start with what is the Green Ribbon Award. This is a federal award. It's really a recognition of school sustainability achievements, and it's a pretty difficult award to achieve. So if you are a current winner or a past winner, congrats, because it takes a lot of work to get there. But if you're somebody who's interested in taking your school to the next step and the next level of school sustainability, the Green Ribbon Award is really the highest honor that you can receive. It began in 2012, and it was actually part of the No Child Left Behind's reference to blue ribbon schools, and some environmentalists and lobbyists were inspired by blue ribbon schools and the fact that the Department of Education was allowed to recognize schools for excellence. And so they decided to come up with a green ribbon award to really recognize schools that have taken on major environmental and sustainability initiatives to recognize their achievement and their impact on the community. There's three different pillars of the green ribbon, and we're going to go through each one of those in depth tonight to explain how you can achieve different levels in each one of those, but also why it's important and what impact it can have on your students. Just a brief intro to Missouri's Green Ribbon Award. We have a joint nomination process through Missouri DESE and Show Me Green Schools. Each year, we are allowed to nominate up to 5 schools, and including one private school per year. This presentation will be sent out after the fact, and the full list of National Green Ribbon winners in Missouri is hyperlinked here in this slide. But there's been 24 schools that have achieved this award since 2012. 8 have been private schools, 16 were public. 21 of them were in St. Louis. We have one in Nixa very recently, just one, and one in DeSoto and one in Herculaneum. Our free and reduced lunch stats on this are a little bit varied. We've got 3 schools that have had 100% free and reduced lunch, one school at over 50%, 5 schools at over 25%, 3 schools over 10%, and 10 schools were less than 10% free and reduced lunch. So the folks that govern this process, just so you understand who you're applying with, first, it's me, Deborah. I'm Deborah Rogers Curtis, the Green Schools Coordinator for Missouri Gateway Green Building Council, and I don't govern the process, but I do support Missouri Green Schools on their way to the National Green Ribbon Award. I'm also a former principal from St. Louis Public Schools, and during my tenure as principal, we won this award. So I'm extremely familiar with the process and what it takes to achieve this recognition. My email is listed here. Feel free to shoot me an email at any time. I would love to chat with you, even if you're just curious to know if your school is close to being able to win something like this. Leslie Moylan is our co-director of or is the co-director of Missouri Environmental Education Association, otherwise known as MIA. And Leslie really is the person who organizes the entire application process. So Leslie is your go-to contact for when you're ready to apply and questions about the process. And then finally, our Green Schools Committee are the ones that review all of our Green Ribbon applications. So our committee members govern all of Show Me Green Schools, but specifically they also take care of all Green Ribbon Award nominations and processes. All right, so let's get into the pillars of the green ribbon. Pillar number one is the most obvious one. It's the reduced environmental impact and costs. And this refers to both the environment itself, but also cost-saving mechanisms. So, if you would like to achieve green ribbon, you have to have a demonstrable reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, the waste that is actually going to the landfill, and your carbon footprint through transportation. So, not every school has to hit every single one of these lines, but within the environmental impact and cost pillar, you do have to show a demonstrated reduction of these categories, and you have to actually be able to show with statistics and numbers and data. So, it's important that you are tracking greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, waste, and your carbon footprint. Under the greenhouse gas emissions, you actually have to, in order to show reduction, you have to do an energy audit or an emissions inventory. It also requires a reduction plan, and you could basically take a couple of different routes within energy reduction and greenhouse gas reduction. And during our case study portion of today's webinar, I'll show you what specific schools have done. But some of our options are putting in energy efficiency, appliances or, major systems like HVAC systems, but also taking conservation measures or using on-site renewable energy or even purchasing green power. In order to reduce water usage, you also have to conduct a water audit to establish a baseline and then to show that you have reduced based on that baseline. You also have to have an assessment and an addressing of any water quality issues. This is most likely going to refer to lead in the water, but sometimes there are other contaminants or other water issues, especially if you are having sewage issues in your school. That's another common one. Waste also requires an audit. A waste audit can be conducted by the students themselves or by the staff. And then you have to show how you are reducing the solid waste through recycling measures, reducing your consumption, composting, or other waste diversion tactics, excuse me. You also must address any hazardous waste on your school's campus and how you're disposing of it, and making sure that your hazardous waste is being disposed of properly. And then finally, really understanding how to address your carbon footprint through transportation methods and changes. You could include if energy efficient vehicles, perhaps an EV bus fleet, or alternative transportation like a walk or ride your bike to school campaign. So, in order to achieve all of these different factors, it seems like a lot. And you're right, this is a lot. It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of sometimes years to achieve this. And that's okay because these changes are long lasting and each one of them will result in savings from a financial perspective, but also a seriously positive impact on the environment. I want to point out this very first resource, which is a full presentation on how to conduct a water, waste, and energy audit, and also how to reduce each of those three categories. So making sure that you know that resource has already been recorded and presented to all Missouri Green schools. I just want to draw your attention to that because it's going to go back to all of these different technical things that must be done in order to achieve the Missouri Green or the Missouri Green Ribbon nomination and then the national award. Specific resources here include a waste audit student worksheet and a waste audit lesson plan. The waste audit is probably the easiest one to do with students of any age. So if you're a particular school that really is interested in getting your students involved in this work, I would start with the waste audit. It's extremely student friendly. It's kid friendly. Even little preschoolers have done waste audits in our programs. So please do not negate somebody based on their age because they can absolutely do this work. There's a couple of other resources here that just kind of point you in the right direction. But I also want to harp on the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This is an amazing tool, really, for tracking your utility bills. And so to get your hands on your utility bills and then to enter them into the Star Portfolio Manager is your easiest way to track and produce a reduction in your water, waste, or energy. Some further resources here. I want to point out this very first one, the guide to using START. The START tool is something that all Missouri Green schools have access to for free because of your membership in this program. The START tool is an incredible resource for students, for teachers, for administrators, and even for district officials like facilities and grounds management people. So I want to make sure that you know that you have access to Start, and this first link will take you directly to the guide of how to use the Start, how to get your login, how to make sure you understand the program, and how to access the program. The most amazing thing about the START tool is that there are 53 metrics and they all fall within the three pillars of Green Ribbon. So if you become extremely familiar with the START tool and you start tracking your energy, water, and waste usage through START, you will be well on your way to understanding how to make improvements and how to track and document your achievements over the year. The other thing that START can do for a school is give you a starting point. It's ironic that the name is START. When I was a principal, I had a really hard time knowing what I should begin with because it was not my background. I was trained as an educator, and then I was trained again as a principal. And although I took a facilities class, I actually never learned anything about sustainable design or anything like that. So the START tool really gives you a starting point and allows you to understand these 53 different points that you can really measure your own progress against. And it also, for each metric, it gives you a bank of resources, including modules of how to do these various things. For example, greenhouse gas emissions. There's at least four metrics that are focused on greenhouse gas emissions. And each one, when you click on it, it tells you exactly what it is, but it also tells you where can I go for more information and how can I measure greenhouse gas emissions, how can I reduce it, and how can I track that reduction. So START is going to be a great tool for all of you. And there is an entire presentation and folder in our Missouri Green Schools folder of how to use START in order to achieve that. There's also quite a few resources here for water. These resources are on three different aspects of water management at a school. First is drinking water, clean drinking water, and that is an important aspect of the pillars of the Green Ribbon Award to ensure that every single child and staff member have access to clean and healthy drinking water. The second is stormwater management and rainwater. This is a really wonderful project to take on if you are a school teacher or an administrator who perhaps you don't have much control over your HVAC system, but a rainwater garden or a stormwater management system is a lot easier to achieve. It's a building block step and it does not cost a lot of money. In fact, sometimes it costs no money to change the way your stormwater functions. So I highly recommend each of those aspects of our different water resources here. The second pillar for the Green Ribbon Award is improved health and wellness. Now, this one is really about students and staff, basically anybody who's in your building every day or on your building grounds, and that includes community members. We're really trying to improve their health and their overall holistic wellness. There's two different slides here that we're going to talk about quite a bit for improved health and wellness. This first one is the whole school, whole community, whole child network framework from the CDC. This is a fantastic starting point. If your school does not meet the standards outlined in this framework, this is the place to start on pillar number 2. So the whole school, whole community, whole child framework is a best practices to ensure students and staff members are healthy as possible in your building. There's three different emphases in this framework. First, the role of the community in supporting the school. Second, the connections between health and academic achievement. And third, the importance of evidence-based school policies and practices. So those three different aspects of the framework they really dictate these 10 components that are listed below. It is really important, it is really important to note that each of the emphases of this framework is focused on both students and staff, and these are all about health and wellness. So this is all pillar number 2. Our components of the framework are all about physical education, slash physical activity, nutrition, health, social and emotional services, the physical environment of the actual building itself or the classroom itself, health services, counseling, psychological and social services, employee wellness, community involvement, and the family. So the whole school, whole community, whole child framework, while it is a mouthful, is a really amazing way to approach children, schools, classrooms, teachers, etc. I use this frequently as a principal during my time because first I was a principal during COVID and it was an absolute necessity. It was a need in my community to help make sure that we were as physically and mentally healthy as possible. But it was also important, even outside of COVID, before COVID and after COVID, that school was really recognized as a place where a lot of health services are provided. This is a great area where school is meeting a basic need of families and students and even their employees to make sure that everybody is healthy, safe, challenged, supported, and engaged. The second aspect of pillar number two, improved health and wellness, is to integrate the school environmental health program and considering occupant health and safety in design, construction, renovation, operations, and maintenance of facilities and grounds. So this one is a little bit different. If we go back a page, our framework is really much more philosophical and then very, very practical. So all of these different areas, pardon me. My apologies. I have a very large dog, and the mailman just arrived. So I apologize. If we look at these, this goes from philosophical into very practical. If we look at the second aspect of our improved health and wellness, we have this integrated approach where we are making sure that during every piece of our building's history, we are incorporating environmental health. So the design and construction and renovation, those three are lumped together as construction projects, essentially. So if you are designing a brand new school building, for example, or if you are tearing an old school down and rebuilding, or if you are taking an older building and you are renovating even just a piece of it, it is important to integrate school health and improved health and wellness into the design itself. Operations and maintenance are for existing buildings that are not under construction at all. Maybe they've been there for 100 years or more. And we want to make sure that even those older buildings still are supportive of the students and staff health and wellness. This resource here from the EPA is a really basic but significant guide on how to create a healthy school environment. And it's a great rule of thumb. And this is another place to start if you're wondering, do I even have a healthy school environment? How would I know? We also have plenty of other resources for you. First, the Center for Green Schools very recently released this lovely resource library on school sustainability and health. And this is a true library. It's a virtual library of articles, research, studies that prove and connect the linkage between a school building and a student or a staff member's health and wellness. So if you are especially somebody who needs to justify your work in the Green School program or your work towards the National Green Ribbon Award, this particular resource will help you understand that connection to health and wellness and ensure that you are able to explain to funders or to your district or to your school board why these changes are important to make. Other resources include the Green Schoolyards Activity Guide. Green Schoolyards is an amazing resource for schools where actually, no, every single thing on their website is free. And they really help you understand how to use your building and your facilities, like the grounds, your perhaps a school garden, or even just the area outside of your classroom walls, how you can use them for specific lesson plans and outdoor learning space, and making sure that students are getting enough physical exercise throughout the day and also access to nature. And then we also have the Show Me Green Schools resource library on health and wellness. If you participate in the Green Schools Quest, our theme last year was biodiversity plus wellness, and we were looking for projects that were focused on the connection between building and student health and wellness. So we prepared a lot of resources for you on that. There's also another new resource here, National Center of School Infrastructure. This is another resource bank, and it will basically help you understand how to make these health and wellness improvements or ideas, ways to brainstorm parts of your building that could be shifted or changed. Specifically, the EPA has given out regional information on very specific children's health issues. So for Missouri, our EPA region has given out information on asthma, pollutants. We have a lot on allergens and things that are in our air naturally, but also some water issues that we have faced in Missouri, including sewage or lead in the water, that kind of thing. So these are things that are really important to look into and see where your school falls and what specific health issues might be in your area that you could address. I know for my school, when I was a school principal, childhood obesity was a major concern. And we also had a lot of childhood diabetes cases that were preventable. And so it became a mission of ours to only serve healthy food and to take away unhealthy snacks and food incentives. And then there's a couple of other free resources here, but each one of these resources leads to a bank of resources essentially. So don't get overwhelmed, but just know that there is a lot out there to help you. The third and final pillar of the Green Ribbon Award is environmental and sustainability education. So this is really trying to get your students to understand what sustainability is, what conservation is, what environmentalism is all about, and how can they apply it to their entire lives going forward. So, in order to achieve this portion, this pillar of the award, you really have to focus on things that are interdisciplinary. They are looking for the relationship between the environment, energy, and human systems. So, very similar to what we were just discussing, how buildings and grounds affect our health and wellness. We also are looking for a way to incorporate that into your school day and into your curriculum, but from an interdisciplinary approach. The most obvious discipline that would work with school sustainability and environmentalism is science, and there's nothing wrong with incorporating this into science at all. But it's also important to note that school sustainability touches just about every single aspect of their academic day, and so it does not have to just fall to STEM or to the science world in general. Um, there's also a development of civic engagement, knowledge, and skills. So here is where we get into kind of the responsibility aspect of education and who we are, raising as the next generation of leaders for our country. And we're looking to make sure that students know that they have the power to change our earth, our environment, our setting, our health, our wellness, and we want them to know how to make the world better. And then finally, the environmental and sustainability education pillar really would like teachers and the curriculum to allow students to address their own community. This is a federal award, but it's based on what students and staff are able to do in their specific local community. We know that the federal award is very exciting and national recognition is great, but it's only as good as the impact that we can have on the people who feel it every single day. And so the local community here is extremely important on the environmental and sustainability education piece. One thing that I wanted to make sure you know, and in order to apply for this award, you do not have to have a separate or even a formal sustainability class in your schedule or in your curriculum. However, it does require that sustainability education is happening somewhere in the day. This might be integrating it into lesson plans regularly. It might be into events or one-off events. A lot of schools have like an Earth Day festival. That would count as an education event. But I just want to make sure you understand we do not expect you to hire a new staff person. That is not required. But it's really meant that you are incorporating education about the earth and how to be more sustainable into more of an integrated approach in an interdisciplinary approach. Our first resource that I want to point out is the entire resource library specifically to teachers. There is a specific, I'm sorry, not a specific, there's a general folder that this first link will take you to, and it's broken down by sustainability topic. I do want to point out that each of our .gov websites shift frequently, and so we try and make sure that these are updated, but I do want you to know that if you find a page not found or an error message, we are trying to clean those up every single day, so just bear with us, be patient. But there are a few specific things for teachers within that library that I want to make sure you know about. The first one is the teacher resources folder. It is chock full of lesson plans, free resources, even things like worksheets, small things like a scavenger hunt for your students to go through your school and do a checklist of what is sustainable and what is not. There's also a lot of deep philosophical things in that folder that are a little bit more geared for the adult, the teacher in the room. Sorry, my poor dog. We also have the Midwest Sustainability Organization list. This is really wonderful for those of you who are community partner minded, who are looking for organizations that can help you achieve your sustainability goals. They're really, really essential to making sure that you can achieve what you need to achieve, maybe even financially. As a principal, this was the only way we survived was making partnerships and making sure that other people were invested in the work that we were doing. And sometimes that actually meant financially investing, but often it meant volunteerism. It meant making sure that our teachers felt supported, finding resources for them, taking care of them, even as small as writing them a thank you card was part of our partnership. So I want to make sure you know that there are lots of Midwest sustainability organizations out there. There's also an entire folder just on the connection between schools and sustainability. And then finally, the Green Resources Info Services at Missouri Botanical Garden. This is a bank of experts that can answer your specific sustainability question. This is an amazing group of people. They are so smart and so talented, and they also respond very, very quickly. So you can call or you can email them at that link, and they can answer any specific questions that you might come across. Pardon me. All right, I'd like to move on to two different case studies of past Green Ribbon Award winners. Our first one is our most recent award winner, and that's Bridgeway Elementary in Pattonville School District here in St. Louis, where I am based out of. And Bridgeway Elementary's nomination packet is actually hyperlinked right in this presentation to make sure you are able to see exactly what they were able to submit and see if you're anywhere close to what they're doing. A couple of amazing things that they've achieved this year that led to this award, and this goes in order of the three pillars. First, they updated all of their energy efficient systems to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, including a new boiler. They installed motion sensors for their lights. They switched out and transferred to all LED lights. They installed a building automation system, and they installed rooftop solar panels. Amazing. You might look at that list and say, "Oh my gosh, each one of those costs so much money. We don't have that money." And that might be true, but that's okay. Not every school has to go about this the exact same way. Of our schools go through rebate programs, they go through incentive programs, or they find grants for these specific types of improvements. Excuse me, they also put in a stormwater retention pond and specifically added native plants in order to address an issue they were having on their campus with some undue flooding that was just not helpful. And their stormwater retention pond really is helping that situation. Excuse me. They added filtered water bottle refiller stations throughout their building, and they also did water testing for every single water source that comes into their building, which is pretty incredible because that can be very time consuming, but it's very important to make sure that no matter what source it's coming from, your water is clean and safe for your students and staff. Their school garden existed, but it needed a pretty serious upgrade. So they went through quite a process to remove their invasive plants, to replace them with native plants, They built a community garden so that their families and their neighbors could benefit from the fresh fruits and vegetables that were coming in. And they also built a sensory garden for their students' needs, which is pretty cool. And it's really cute and fun. If you have a chance to go and visit that school, make sure you take a look. They installed a drip irrigation system, which allowed them to save on water usage quite a bit. And then they also used a very specific method of planting in order to cut down on the soil needed for their gardens. Inside, they built a STEM lab, and outside, they rearranged and kind of refurbished an outdoor courtyard for outdoor learning, making sure that STEM is at the focus of what they're doing. They also revived their recycling program. This is a really common story, excuse me, that schools used to have recycling and then COVID happened, or a teacher left, or the district stopped paying for recycling services. And so Bridgeway said, we used to have this program and it was great. So let's bring it back up. So instead of just reviving the program, they made it a student leadership initiative. And students, through their K-Kids Service Club, conducted their waste audit and basically revamped their entire waste diversion system. Excuse me. They utilized an integrated pest management system, IPM. And if you're interested in this particular service, there are a lot of resources out there on integrated pest management that are small but mighty changes that you can make to making sure that your building is healthy and safe and free of pests, but also you're not harming the environment by getting rid of them in a specific way. They also took on major health programs and special services, including dental, vision, and health screenings, and bringing in mental health services for their students and staff. And then finally, they incorporated sustainability directly into that curriculum through worm bins. Every class is allowed to have a worm bin and observe their worms as they go through their composting process. They also added in pollinator lesson plans, and then they added specific science curriculum that was really geared towards school sustainability. I have to tell you, I actually had a very hard time putting these slides together because they achieved much more than what is on that slide. And I just could not possibly fit all of their achievements into one slide or even a slide of photos. So just a nice, adorable picture of these children and the work that they were able to do in order to achieve this Green Ribbon nomination. Our second case study is my former school, Patrick Henry. And I wanted to talk about it specifically because I've done this work and I want to make sure and utilize my own background on this issue. I've linked to our nomination package as well so that you can see everything that we have accomplished. Our hardest barrier was finance and the age of our building. Our building was over 100 years old and had extremely old systems, and that were also extremely expensive to fix, to replace, etc. So it took a large partnership and a lot of financial finagling. We utilized utility incentive rebate programs, both through Ameren, Missouri and Spire, to fund occupancy sensors, LED lights, building controls, our HVAC retro commissioning, and the cleaning of the duct and ventilation systems. And we also replaced our boilers and our windows. Weirdly enough, the window replacement was one of the hardest things to achieve because our buildings were not normal sizes. They were actually enormous, and it was very difficult to find even a company that could do it, let alone that could do it affordably. The cleaning of the duct and ventilation system was a direct result of COVID because we needed much, much better indoor air quality during that insane season of life. We also added water bottle filling stations through a grant. And for those of you who are watching, when this is being recorded on May 6th, 2025, there's a current grant out there from Missouri American Water Foundation for water bottle filling stations. So make sure you check that out. That's on our website and in our newsletter. We also upgraded our toilets to low flow toilets and waterless urinals, and that significantly decreased our water usage. And then we also had a very similar issue to Bridgeway with a stormwater runoff, which we had to divert and then capture in our school garden so that we could reuse the water for watering the plants. Our community garden was a zero waste and multi-generational garden that was pretty magical and amazing and brought our entire community together, mostly because it was a solution to the food desert our school was located within. We had no grocery stores whatsoever and no sources of fresh fruit and vegetables before our garden was installed. Our plastics were eliminated through our fresh fruits and vegetable snack packs. Because my school had 100% free and reduced lunch students, we received a grant from the government to provide fresh fruits and vegetables in the afternoon, which was wonderful and really healthy. But they came in plastic containers that were then immediately thrown away for all 350 of our students. So we were able to work with the company that provided our work, or excuse me, our food, and we were able to eliminate the plastics from that. We also were able to work with them to eventually use our own garden for that program. So we were not double dipping, we were actually utilizing our own homegrown produce. We decreased our paper consumption and reduced the number of printers throughout our school in order to really capitalize on no longer using so much ink and cartridges, that kind of thing. We also started a reuse and repurpose program through the district warehouse program. And we had, quote, garage sales where we just did spring cleaning and we allowed families and every teacher to bring all of their materials to one location. And then families and teachers were allowed to shop and take anything they wanted for free to reuse the next school year. We also partnered with local hotels because over 30% of our population were unhoused and they frequently needed basic necessities like soap or sheets, a pillow. And so our hotels, which has a lot of waste in that area, they ended up just bringing us all of their leftover goods. And we were able to give them to our families for free. So it was a win-win. We also instituted a walking only field trip policy. Now, I will say this, we were very blessed to be in a location where our field trips were all within walking distance. So it was a pretty magical system. We were located in downtown St. Louis, and so we only walked to places instead of taking bus trips. We also had a weekly field trip with Central Public Library, and they helped us get there every day. We would walk there and back, so students were getting 2 miles of walking exercise each week, and they also were allowed to receive special resources once we got there. We removed all of our styrofoam trays and any styrofoam products from the building. That was a no-brainer. One very interesting thing that we instituted was something called an AIM zone, Academics in Motion, in every classroom and common area. And this speaks to pillar number 2, the improved health and wellness, where students were able to physically move but stay in the classroom. This helped significantly cut down on student behaviors and also those fidgety kiddos that just need to move and don't want to sit for more than 10 minutes at a time. We had bike pedalers, we had boogie boards, we had bounce boards, we had just an incredible number of materials that allowed students to keep moving and stay in motion, but concentrate on their schoolwork and stay in the classroom. Similarly, the walking classroom literacy tool was a wonderful initiative from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, and we utilized that in order to keep our kids outside, experiencing the great outdoors. But they were given basically like individual readers that were reading a book to them while they were walking. It was very, very cool. Our kids loved it, and it's a very successful tool. And then finally, our much more extreme measures to provide services to our unhoused families included the parent resource room, where we provided free food, free materials for babies. Even a lot of our parents had very young children who did not attend our school, who needed diapers and formula and that kind of thing. And so we worked with the Little Bit Foundation. We worked with about 20 different partners every single month to bring in resources for our families, and our families had access to them at all times. Here's a couple of photos. My favorite one is the teacher on the right here, was one of my fourth grade teachers who never wanted to take her students outside, was always afraid of outdoor education because she thought it would lead to behavior problems. And in fact, she became one of the greatest garden supporters of all time, and turned it full on into a curriculum aspect of life for her classroom. Our garden was really fun. That student on the left is was so enthusiastic about weed pulling. He was just thrilled to do it every single time. And our preschoolers were really, really good at it. And then finally, our center photo was during our Green Ribbon Award process. We invited our superintendent and the mayor at the time of St. Louis, Mayor Tashara Jones, to come and celebrate our students, and they were just thrilled with their award. So, what's next if you're a school who's interested in applying for the Green Ribbon Award? The first is you have to be an enrolled Missouri Green School. So make sure you enroll. And if you are already enrolled, please make sure that you're at least the seedling level to apply. That really is the level where you begin to measure your water, waste, and energy. And like I said, here's a full presentation on how to conduct a water, waste, or energy audit to establish your baselines. And then make sure you are reducing at least two of those three. You're going to document your utility bills. If you have past utility bills that you can look at that your district is willing to provide to you, that's even better. But you need at least 6 months to show a true reduction. And then you always want to make sure you're documenting your progress in START. That's where we house all of our schools' information. And then ideally, you'll have five or more people on a green team. If not, three is acceptable. But you really need more people on this in this work with you. This cannot be a one-man show. And then finally, if you're interested in pursuing Green Ribbon, just shoot me an email right here at drogers@mobot.org. And that will help you, help me navigate with you kind of where you're at as a school and what I can do to make sure that you are ready. And then we'll connect you with Leslie, who will make sure your application is sound. Just a few upcoming events to mention if you're watching this live. Anytime that you are interested in meeting with me, you can always make an appointment with me on my calendar via Calendly. But in the fall, we will be offering a Missouri Green Schools Learning Series session, an hour-long session on waste, an hour session on energy, and an hour session on water. So if you were able to join us for MGS 301, how to do those audits, this fall session will take you into a much more in-depth session of understanding water, waste, and energy and how to make some improvements in your building. So I highly suggest coming to those if you are interested in Green Ribbon. Finally, our upcoming event for Missouri Green Schools is your request for review is coming up July 1st. So now is about the time you should start gathering your achievements and meeting with me to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row, and we can make sure that you get the next level of achievement in September. Here's my email address one more time, and I would like to say thank you for coming, and I will pause the recording so that we can get to our questions. If you are a person who is watching this recorded, I would just encourage you to go ahead and email me any questions that you have and get you your answers via email, or feel free to make an appointment with me. Thank you so much for joining us.